Thanks to our panel. What a fabulous panel. Maybe I can kick the questioning off very quickly, and then we'll go to your questions. So some of our experts that we've heard from in other regions have tried to explain this area of applied research to me, transformational research, translational research. And because they knew I was really dumb and ignorant, they had to give me a football analogy. And so they said the NIH brings ideas, facts, material out to the first 10-yard line, out of the end zone to the first 10-yard line. And to get it to bedside, you gotta count on somebody to take it 90 yards. And that's the translational or transformational area. And then they said that, you know, if you try to take something that 90 yards, it costs a lot of money, about $1 billion, $1.5 billion, whatever. And that a large percentage of it fails. One of you was saying that 43% in late stage fails. I think they said 90% of what you take 90 yards fails. So that's daunting to me when you just look at it. Then I was out at UCSF in California with the head of the Department of Neurology, and he said, you know, the hard part about being in my area is that we have no answers to anything. We have no answers. It's the black hole of medicine. We can't get anybody to go the 90 yards. For MS, for Alzheimer's, for you name it, he said, I have patients come in and I have nothing to say to them. There's no help. And then we hear about the Genome Project and personalized medicine and all that means. And when I apply that phenomenon to this 90-yard problem, I really get scared because the economic model doesn't work. We have many, many kinds of prostate cancer, many, many kinds of breast cancer, and on and on and on. We're all different. We're all rare diseases. And so how do we reconstruct this model, is my question, of innovation, this mechanism of innovation, so that we can, as David was saying, we have a longer trajectory. How do we shorten that trajectory and come up with these new answers that are probably personalized? How do we get the collaboration between the private sector and the public sector? How much collaboration needs to go on? How much is intellectual property a problem in this mechanism? So what are some of the things that you've been thinking about that could help us in that very important 90-yard play? Yes.
First, I'll challenge the model.
Okay.
Because I think part of our difficulty is the sort of linear thinking that everything begins with basic discovery, moves into applications, moves into commercialization, and moves into practice. And it's true, all those things do have to take place, but they don't always take place in linear order. Necessity is the mother of invention. Very often things are, in fact, developed without really understanding how and why they work. And part of the role of science is, in fact, then to explain it so that we can improve and optimize it. What I found is a liberating concept is a piece I referred to earlier, a book called The Pasteur Quadrant by Donald Stokes of the Brookings Institute, who takes the one-dimensional problem and makes it two-dimensional. He says we have very, very different motivations for doing research, one of which is the quest for basic knowledge. We in universities certainly know and understand that's our preoccupation, our dedication, and it's independent of application. Another is productization, and he defines patron saints. Patron saint for pure product research is Edison. No one's accused him of inventing a new theory, but thank God for all the things that he invented. The patron saint for basic scientific research is Niels Bohr, and we can certainly all respect that understanding the basic structure of the atom is fundamental to virtually everything that we've accomplished in terms of harnessing chemistry and now the translation of chemistry and biology. What made it interesting is he defined a quadrant in which he did both. We call it use-inspired, or the Pasteur quadrant, in which the driver, in fact, came from a connection to the marketplace, but not for incremental improvement of the status quo, but in fact developing the disruptive technologies. I referred to it earlier as the Bell Labs as an icon at large-scale corporate research and development. So when we talk about the drive from the 10-yard line after the kickoff or we talk about bench to bedside, we lock ourselves in the mentality that in fact it all has to start by pouring more and more into basic research and hoping that it gets through the pipeline. We need, good ideas can arise anywhere. The understanding and the experimental evidence confirming the Big Bang Theory came out of folks at Bell Labs, not who were hired to study solar or astronomy, but in fact people who were trying to solve the early days of background noise in satellite communications. But they had the intellect and the resources to step back. By the same token, the transistor didn't come out of people who were interested in experimenting in advanced surface physics, but in fact people who had to solve the problem of replacing the transistor. So we need all of these. I think that's my point. Is good ideas will arrive everywhere, but the thing that we are critically lacking now is that kind of a capability to engage in the use-inspired research equivalent for the medical industry. A place in which it's not a company but a sector that's being advanced. A place in which we have the people that connect to the resources intellect of the university but don't work at the timescales of a student being trained or with the focus of an individual professor trying to accomplish the things that we expect of them in their professional development. But it's not going to be something that will happen solely from those who are looking to incrementally improve their basic core competency. There is, in fact, a wonderful opportunity, I think, to create new types of public-private partnerships that mirror what's happened around the world, that bridge that gap and replace what used to be in our economy because of the scale of the businesses that we have, and that have either disappeared because of global pressure or perhaps are focused now on core competencies that may not be relevant to the improvements that we seek.
Very, very good.
Just add to that comment.
Yes, and
I
then
think
we'll
that's
get Doctor.
absolutely true, Don. I think widening the funnel in research and providing more opportunities is critical, but I also think when it comes to new medicines and drug development, we basically today develop drugs and get them approved by the FDA in the same way that we did 30, 40, 50 years ago, with the same series of clinical studies, the same types of clinical endpoints typically, and that has to change because the model will not work anymore. You cannot develop drugs and spend $500 million to $1 billion each on that drug development, particularly now as we're going to further fragment the disease understanding as we build on the notion of personalized medicine and learn from the human genome and human genetics. So we need a different model. And to do that, I think we need to understand biochemical markers, surrogate endpoints, different statistical analyses, and some of that is already underway. The FDA, they've just begun thinking about that in different forums, and I'm hopeful that in the next year, on the other side of whatever healthcare bill comes out of Washington, that those reforms at the FDA, where it's not the FDA putting it alone in place, or the Congress or industry alone, but everybody coming together and solving what that problem is, I think better clinical design is essential.